Story 1. Horrifying Abandonment in Bali, the Vacation Booking Fraud. My name is Detective Maria Silva, and I have seen my fair share of disturbing cases throughout my career. However, the events that unfolded during the investigation of a vacation booking fraud in Bali left a mark on me that I will never forget. It all started when a young couple, Sarah and Mark, reached out to our agency for help. They had booked what seemed to be a dream vacation to Bali through an online travel agency. The pictures of the villa they were supposed to stay in were breathtaking, promising a luxurious and relaxing getaway. But as soon as they arrived in Bali, things took a dark turn. The address provided for their villa led them to an abandoned building, far from the paradise they were promised. Panicked and confused, Sarah and Mark tried to contact the travel agency, only to find that their website had disappeared without a trace. As we delved deeper into the case, we discovered a pattern of similar frauds targeting unsuspecting tourists looking for affordable luxury vacations. The scammers would lure their victims with enticing offers, only to abandon them in desolate locations, leaving them stranded and vulnerable. Our investigation led us to a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of Bali, where we found evidence of a sophisticated operation behind the vacation booking fraud. Fake websites, forged documents, and a network of accomplices working together to deceive innocent travelers for their own gain. But what chilled me to the bone was what we found in the basement of that warehouse. Rows of empty cages, chains hanging from the ceiling, and a sense of dread that lingered in the air. It became clear that the victims of this fraud were not just abandoned. They were being held captive, their fate unknown. As we combed through the evidence, we uncovered the truth behind the operation. The scammers were not just after money. They were part of a twisted game, preying on the hopes and dreams of those seeking a moment of escape. The abandoned buildings were just the beginning. The real horror lay in what happened to those who fell into their trap. In the end, we were able to shut down the operation and rescue the victims, but the scars left by the horrifying abandonment in Bali will never fully heal. Sarah and Mark, along with the others, returned home with a bitter taste of deception, their trust shattered by the cruel reality of human greed. Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 2. Eerie Abandonment at a Haunted Hotel. As I stepped into the lobby of the once grand hotel, a shiver ran down my spine. The air was thick with dust, and the only sound was the creaking of the old floorboards beneath my feet. The hotel had been abandoned for years, a relic of a bygone era, but there was something more sinister lingering in the air. I had heard stories about this place, about the strange happenings that drove guests away in the dead of night. People whispered about ghostly apparitions and unexplained noises echoing through the halls. But I was a skeptic, a journalist looking for a story to expose the truth behind the myths. As I made my way up the staircase, the walls seemed to close in around me. The faded wallpaper peeled away to reveal the decaying structure beneath. Each step I took echoed through the empty corridors, a lonely sound that sent a chill down my spine. I reached the top floor, where the most disturbing reports had originated. Room 333. The door stood slightly ajar, as if inviting me inside. With a deep breath, I pushed it open and stepped into the darkness beyond. The room was freezing cold, despite the warm summer night outside. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and contorting in unnatural shapes. And in the corner, a figure stood, its back to me, unmoving. "Hello," I called out, my voice barely a whisper in the oppressive silence. No response. The figure remained still, a silent sentinel in the darkness. I approached slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. As I drew closer, I could make out the details of the figure. It was a man, dressed in outdated clothing, his head bowed as if in prayer. "Sir, are you okay?" I asked, reaching out a hand to touch his shoulder. And then he turned. His face was a mask of agony, twisted in a silent scream. His eyes bore into mine, filled with a pain that transcended death itself. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. And then he spoke. "Leave this place." His voice was a whisper, a ghostly echo that sent shivers down my spine. "You do not belong here." I fled from the room, the echoes of his words following me down the stairs and out into the night. I never looked back, but the memory of that haunted hotel stayed with me, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks in the shadows of the human world. Anonymous Spectator Story. Final twist. Years later, a local historian uncovered the truth behind the abandoned hotel. It was revealed that the hotel had been a front for a notorious crime syndicate, using the rooms to conduct illegal activities away from prying eyes. The ghostly figure in room 333 was said to be a victim of their brutal schemes, forever trapped in the hotel's twisted legacy of fear and despair. Story 3. Macabre Escape from Abandoned Resort's Revenge. In a remote coastal town, nestled between jagged cliffs and crashing waves, there stood a grand resort that had long been forgotten by time. The once luxurious hotel now lay in ruins, its faded walls and broken windows a haunting reminder of the dark secrets it held within. I had heard whispers of the resort's sinister past, tales of guests who had vanished without a trace, their screams echoing through the empty halls long after they were gone. Intrigued by the mystery that shrouded the abandoned resort, I decided to investigate, unaware of the horrors that awaited me. As I stepped through the decaying entrance, a chill ran down my spine, and I felt a sense of unease wash over me. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the sound of my footsteps echoed ominously through the deserted corridors. I soon discovered that the resort had been the site of a vacation booking fraud scheme, where unsuspecting travelers were lured in by promises of luxury and relaxation, only to be abandoned and left to fend for themselves in the decaying hotel. As I delved deeper into the heart of the resort, I came across a series of rooms that told a chilling tale of betrayal and revenge. In one room, I found a journal detailing the harrowing experiences of a guest who had been left behind, their words filled with anger and despair. The more I read, the more I realized the true extent of the horrors that had taken place within the resort's walls. Guests had been subjected to cruel and twisted experiments, their suffering fueling the vengeful spirit that now roamed the abandoned halls. Suddenly, a cold wind swept through the corridor, extinguishing the flickering candle in my hand. In the darkness, I heard a faint whisper, a voice filled with malice and hatred. "You should never have come here," it hissed, sending shivers down my spine. I knew then that I was not alone in the abandoned resort, that something malevolent lurked in the shadows, waiting to exact its revenge on any who dared to trespass in its domain. With a growing sense of dread, I turned to flee, only to find my path blocked by a figure cloaked in darkness. Its eyes gleamed with a sinister light, and its twisted smile sent a wave of terror crashing over me. As I stood frozen in fear, the vengeful spirit of the abandoned resort reached out with ghostly hands, its touch like ice against my skin. In that moment, I knew that I was doomed to join the ranks of the forgotten, trapped forever in a nightmare of betrayal and revenge. And so, dear reader, heed my warning and never trust the promises of a vacation booking fraud, for the horrors that await in the shadows are far worse than any earthly punishment. May my tale serve as a cautionary reminder of the dangers that lie hidden in the darkness, waiting to claim their next victim. Anonymous Spectator Story.